Colorado is marking 10 years since 12 people were killed in an Aurora theater.
Survivors heal in different ways and they all have different journeys.
The event's happening today, tonight, and this weekend to remember the victims.
And there is also a number of ways to honor this day in different ways.
Plus, parents in Uvalde, Texas are demanding change.
Our children were screaming of fear, and they did nothing but stand in the hallway and hear them.
After a report shows the failures of law enforcement during that elementary school shooting.
And costs are going up, 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 up.
People who lost their homes in the Marshall Fire asking for help from the city of Louisville to rebuild. Plus, how the state is making the outdoors more accessible for more Coloradans. Happening now, Aurora police are about to give an update about a murder suspect who was shot and killed by police. So here's what we know so far. Police shot and killed a wanted murder suspect who was involved in a standoff lasting more than 12 hours overnight. This happened in an Aurora neighborhood near Peoria and Del Mar, just south of 6th Avenue. Police say the man had an arrest warrant from Georgia for a homicide that happened earlier this month. Officers say they tried to negotiate with him, but he would not come out of that home. They say after hours of negotiating, he finally came out, but was holding a gun, and that's when he was shot by police. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. The officers involved were wearing body cameras and have been put on administrative leave. Now, when Aurora Police's press briefing begins, you can watch it on thedenverchannel.com. We'll also have much more on this story coming up tonight on Denver 7 News at 5. Tonight, overnight, marks 10 years since a gunman opened fire at the Century Theater in Aurora. It happened during a midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises. The community will come together to remember the 12 Coloradans who were killed that night, with events tonight and this weekend as well. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta is at the 720 Memorial near Aurora City Hall.
One of those events is tonight. It'll start 1 minute before midnight, so 11:59. It is one of the remembrance ceremonies right here at the 720 Memorial right outside of Aurora City Hall, and you can see what this place looks like. The 12 stones accompanied by a photo of each of those victims right next to it. All of the different remembrance events happening this week, they're being put on by the 720 Memorial Foundation. Representatives say they realize everyone grieves differently, which is why they've put on so many of these different events. During tonight's event, there will be a tour of all 12 of these stones, each of those stones again representing each of the victims. There will also be a procession by Aurora Police and other first responders. Listen to what else organizers say makes this so special.
There's 12 stones representing each of the families who lost someone, and you'll hear a little story about each one of them. And then we will gather back underneath Accentuate, the centerpiece of the memorial, where we will open it up for anyone who has some thoughts that they might want to say.
On Saturday, there's going to be a fundraising 5K. That's for a scholarship that was started by one of the shooting survivors. A formal reflection ceremony at 1:30 to read the names and honor the victims. At 3, a free community event. And at 7:20, a special audio-visual event with art representing the feelings over the last 10 years. Now, if you'd like to be a part of tonight's ceremony, you can, of course, come and do that in person. The 720 Memorial Foundation is also going to be live streaming the event on its Facebook page. In Aurora, I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Congressman Jason Crow will hold a virtual press conference about the shooting this afternoon. He'll be joined by a survivor, Colorado Representative Tom Sullivan, who lost his son in the shooting, and a gun violence prevention activist. They will talk about the steps needed to protect the community from gun violence. Congressman Crow is also supporting a bill that would create an Amber Alert style system for active shooters. He posted on Twitter saying many Coloradans live in fear following the Aurora Theater shooting and other mass shootings here in our state. The bill already passed the House and is being considered in the U.S. Senate. Families in Uvalde, Texas want to see changes in school in order to keep their kids safe. They took their concerns to the school board after a report revealed systemic failures by law enforcement who were responding to the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School. Rena Roy reports.
The grieving community of Uvalde hoping to put pain into action.
I've done my crying. Now it's time to do my fighting.
With specific demands for the Uvalde School Board.
What are you going to do to make sure I don't have to wait 77 minutes bleeding out on my classroom floor just like my little sister did.
Students of Robb Elementary and families of the 19 children and 2 teachers killed in the massacre pushing school district officials to fire police chief Pete Arredondo, seen in this video pleading with the shooter.
Sir, let me know if there's any kids in there or anything. This could be peaceful.
At one point, Arredondo, who is currently on paid administrative leave, acknowledges the delayed response in confronting the gunman, who was in the school for 77 minutes before he was taken down.
People are going to ask why we're taking so long.
He says they were focused on evacuating children over approaching the attacker. Police body camera footage released by the Uvalde mayor and a scathing 77-page report from a Texas House Special Committee revealed Robb Elementary did not adequately prepare for the risk of an armed intruder on campus, and that there were systemic failures with law enforcement's response. The report also said Robb Elementary had a culture of non-compliance with safety policies. All 3 exterior doors to the school's west building were unlocked, allowing the gunman to easily walk in, and the shooter entering room 111 through a door with a lock that had been broken for months. School officials proposing to push back the district's start date from August to September so that security changes can be made, but many are skeptical they'll be done in time.
Most of those kids were my friends, and that's not good. And I don't want to go to your guys' school if they don't have protection.
Some parents are threatening to pull their kids from Uvalde schools out of fear for their safety, many also calling for an independent investigation into what happened. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, Longmont is considering taking action on guns. The city council is holding an executive session tonight to talk about potential gun safety ordinances. Tonight's meeting starts at 5:30. Denver police are expected to release more information tomorrow about the Sunday morning shooting in Lodo, where officers shot into a crowd, injuring several bystanders outside a bar. Police were going after a suspect they say reached for a gun, and officers shot 5 innocent people in the process. Chief Paul Pazin would not elaborate yesterday on whether officers followed department policy, but said it would be part of the investigation. The chief says most of the victims are out of the hospital. A Louisville tax is up for debate tonight. Many Marshall Fire victims are pushing against it, worried they can't afford to rebuild. They rallied outside the Louisville City Hall this weekend, asking the city to waive that tax. The use tax rate for new buildings is 3.6%, which would be about $25,000 for a new home. Fire victims say they want the city to help because they're already dealing with so many unexpected financial burdens.
I think the whole community is standing up and saying, well, of course, this is what we need. It can be done. It just takes the will and it takes the work.
Argue the city can waive the tax because Superior did the same thing a few months ago. Louisville city leaders will talk about that tax tonight. Their meeting starts at 6. Also in Louisville today, the flag that flew over the city's post office during the Marshall fire will be put on display. This is a photo of Postal Service employees taking down the damaged flag a few days after the fire. The flag has been restored and will be unveiled during a special ceremony at 1. And as you can imagine, talking about taxes, rebuilding, or even that flag can be steps forward, but also frustrating and even triggering for some fire victims. 6 months in, and hundreds of families are still struggling financially and emotionally. Denver 7's Christian Lopez reports on the ways Louisville is trying to offer some comfort both now and once we hit the emotional 1-year mark.
Nearly 7 months after the Marshall fire impacted this community, you can see the progress that's been made here in Louisville so far. And looking ahead to that 1-year mark, the city is already planning for that event. They're calling it One Community, 1 Year. Among the tentative plans for marking the anniversary are guided contemplation and art projects at the Louisville Library, an exhibit at the city's museum showing the year of recovery. They're also partnering with artists and musicians to help the community look forward. I spoke to an art therapist who has been helping Marshall fire victims through the healing process over the past few months. She says hitting that 6-month mark recently was triggering for a lot of people who are still dealing with a lot. Her biggest advice to those who are struggling and going through the rebuilding process is to not compare yourself to others if you're not as far along as your neighbors, and just take it one step at a time. She thinks the best thing for the city to do on that first anniversary is just offer a space where the community can come together and feel supported.
I do think that there needs to be something
to really honor the people who lost so much, and everybody, because it's just such a huge community experience. And to really let people know that they still want them to be in their community if they've been displaced. Like, I think a lot of people feel pushed out, you know, at this point. There's a lot of hang-ups with building permits.
That therapist you just heard from is part of the Marshall Fire Art Therapy Group from Superior, and they offer a space for the community to come together and work on art projects. They also have counseling available. It's all free, and that program runs through December. If you want those details, you can go to superiorchamber.com. Reporting in Louisville this morning, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
Christian, thank you. Frontier is adding nonstop service to Houston's Hobby Airport starting in September. The airline says there's strong customer demand for those daily flights. Flights start on Wednesday, September 7th. Frontier is offering deals on tickets starting at $69. The state has been making an effort to make sure everyone can enjoy the outdoors, and today we will learn the groups getting outdoor equity grants. The grants increase access to outdoor opportunities for underserved kids and their families. They also provide resources for environmental education and awareness. Coming up, President Joe Biden is focusing on his domestic agenda, and it includes taking action on climate change. Plus, we'll introduce you to a Colorado man who spends hours making saddles for veterans.